it has been some time since my last video. But like a long-lost prince returning to his kingdom, it's high time I return to my work of reviewing movies. And today's movie is Masters of the Universe, the new live-action adaptation of the 1980s cartoon. I must confess that I'm actually new to the franchise. The original series was before my time, and the other adaptations and reimaginings managed to pass me by. Although based on what I've heard about some titles, it seems I dodged a bullet or two. Nevertheless, this new movie seemed like a good opportunity to begin exploring the world of Eternia for myself. So how did it turn out? The story begins in the Kingdom of Eternia, where the royal family protects the peace until the armies of Skeletor invade with a single goal: seize the heart of Eternia, the Sword of Power, and use it to lay waste to the kingdom and conquer the world. Well, that was just a typical Tuesday back in my day. With Eternia's defenses overwhelmed, the royal family's sorceress is forced to send the young Prince Adam and the sword to Earth for safety, but the prince unfortunately loses the weapon along the way. Years later, Adam works an unfulfilling office job to support an unfulfilling life while he searches for the lost sword and a way home. But a good Samaritan eventually provides him with the lead he needs. Convenient. And he's finally reunited with his weapon. Unfortunately, the sword sends out a signal that draws both friend and foe to Earth, and no sooner is Adam pulled back to Eternia than he's forced to confront Skeletor's armies himself. With the land in danger and monstrous villains closing in, Adam will have to unite the few remaining heroes of Eternia and prove that he has the power to reclaim his kingdom from Skeletor's iron rule. As I said at the beginning, I am largely unfamiliar with the He-Man franchise as a whole, so I cannot speak to this movie's accuracy to the lore. I can only judge it on its own merits. And in that regard, it's quite the fun adventure, although it's not without its flaws. Most prominent is that tiresome, familiar brand of intrusive and self-deprecating humor that has plagued cinema since the weaker entries of the MCU. Now, I don't think anyone is expecting a grim tale of vengeance or self-reflection from a He-Man movie. We're all aware of the campy sensibilities of the 80s cartoon. But the constant gags, quips, and one-liners, complete with contemporary jargon and a curious amount of innuendo, betray a lack of confidence in the source material and undermine those moments when the story tries to be serious. It's all right to lean into that campy, melodramatic fun of the original without the need for a subversive joke or meta-humor every 5 minutes. In fact, I would encourage it in this case. Not only would it differentiate the movie from the rest of the self-aware sludge that comes out these days, but it would allow those crucial moments in the plot to hold more weight. And it doesn't help that the bulk of the humor is made at Adam's expense, with him frequently being portrayed as an out-of-touch buffoon who commands no respect. From what little I know of the lore, Prince Adam served the same purpose as Clark Kent for Superman, or Bruce Wayne for Batman. A foppish, harmless, yet good-natured facade fabricated to hide the hero's power and confidence. The movie does away with any pretense of secret identities, though, which means that Adam's behavior is no illusion. He's a genuine klutz. Some of his awkwardness in Eternia is justified, I admit. He's been away from his home for 15 years, and trapped in a mind-numbing desk job in a soul-crushing corporate lifestyle that stomps out passion and creativity, while it enforces conformity under a thin veneer of superficial congeniality, demanding an adherence to milquetoast routines and reducing all sense of ambition to the most mundane of goals until the very spirit itself is suffocated to the point of... That cut surprisingly deep. So he's understandably out of touch with most of the workings of the kingdom. But the rest of his bumbling and the constant disrespect he receives just ties back to that over-reliance on cheap, self-deprecating humor. It undermines the significance of his personal growth. Adam's destined to be more than just a fighter. He's a prince and the next in line to rule his kingdom. Tone down the fumbles and treat him a little more seriously so we can see those traits shine through more clearly. And while I'm on the topic of character development, I also detected hints of an abandoned story arc for Evil Lynn, Skeletor's right-hand woman. Skeletor's harsh treatment of her and her occasional shifty glances imply that she has a treacherous agenda of her own in the works, but it's never realized. It would have been good foreshadowing for a stronger antagonistic role in a sequel, but it just feels like lost potential. I also had some minor quibbles in the visual department. The special effects are genuinely impressive for most of the movie, but I did notice several instances of dodgy CGI and conspicuous green screens. Then again, that seems to be par for the course for every effects-heavy movie these days. As critical as this all sounds, I do believe that the strengths of the story far outweigh its weaknesses. From the start, there is a genuine sense of adventure to be found here. Eternia itself presents a unique blend of medieval fantasy and futuristic sci-fi elements. From the environments, to the creatures, to the weapons and vehicles. The visual team definitely went out of their way to create a world that offers much to explore. And it's helped in no small part by a stellar soundtrack that harkens back to the 80s era of rock and roll. Say what you will about the humor, but when the story finally gets serious, the music pulls through in a big way. A solid cast also does their part to bring this world to life. True, not every character from the cartoon gets a 100% accurate depiction, but we still have a skilled group of actors with several notable veterans to give each character a uniqueness in appearance, behavior, and skill set. Hey, it's nice to see Inara finding a new career outside of her companion work. And it feels odd to say this about a Jared Leto performance, but Skeletor was far and away the standout character in the movie. He strikes the perfect balance between comical and menacing, and he clearly loves his work. No horrible childhood, no perceived wrongdoing, no tragic misunderstanding. He's just outright evil, and he's in it for the love of the game.
I am the villain. Does it feel good?
Reminds me of my glory days. It's incredibly refreshing to see a villain who's actually a straight-up villain, and doesn't faff about with some forced attempt at sympathy. Not only does that unapologetic nature make them more fun to watch, but it's also much more satisfying to see the hero defeat a genuine menace than fret and grapple with moral grayness. And speaking of heroes, while I found the film's treatment of Adam to be a bit too harsh, Adam himself is an endearing protagonist. Nicholas Galitzine plays the character with a good-natured earnestness, without becoming a total doormat, and his journey carries some important lessons about pulling yourself up after failure, and being willing to use force to keep others safe. He loves his home, his family, and his friends. He wants to believe that there's good in everyone, but when there's no more room for talk, he will lay an unholy beatdown on whoever threatens his world. It's that combination of compassion and power I appreciate in characters like Superman, and in some ways, that makes this the best Superman movie to come out in years. See that, Jimmy Gunn? It is possible to write a character with sincere heroism without having him beaten into the ground every fight. So, was Masters of the Universe a perfect story? By no means. But was it an entertaining adventure with a good amount of heart? Absolutely. And there is nothing wrong with that every now and then. It's a shame the movie's been underperforming at the box office, because I'd love to see a good follow-up. But I do have some DVDs of the cartoon gathering dust in the vault. Maybe it's time I finally give them a watch.